Homa. Hello. Come sit beside me, for I'm going to tell you a story from China. China is a very old, old country. In fact, it's the world's oldest living civilization. The Chinese people call their country Zhongguo, which means middle country. Today, most of the people live in small villages and work together in communes. But China also has several of the world's largest cities. The Chinese people are very proud of their nation, its long history, and its influence on other countries. The Chinese were the first to develop the compass, gunpowder, paper, porcelain, printing, and silk cloth. The Chinese language has many dialects. Written Chinese uses characters instead of an alphabet. Each character stands for a complete idea, thing, or sound. It's a very difficult language to learn because there are more than 40,000 characters. Our story today is an old favorite. Many Chinese stories are about gods, spirits, wizards, and even animals such as the dragon, who all have special powers. In today's story, a wizard brings happiness to a young village boy named Ma Liang. So, come, sit beside me, and I'm going to tell you the story of Ma Liang and the magic brush. A long time ago, in a small village in China, there lived a poor young peasant boy named Ma Liang. Ma Liang's parents died when he was a small child, so he could not go to school like the other children in the village. Instead, he worked all day, gathering firewood or pulling weeds for the people of the town. Every morning, Ma Liang stopped to watch the children in the schoolyard make pictures with brushes and paint. The schoolmaster showed them how to draw green trees and bluebirds and red roosters. Ma Liang was fascinated by the graceful strokes of their brushes and dreamed of all the beautiful pictures he would paint if he owned a brush. But his chores earned him only enough money for food and clothes, so of course he could not afford to buy brushes and paint. After the painting lesson was over, the children went back inside the schoolhouse, and Ma Liang went slowly back to his chores with a frown on his face and a dream in his heart. One day, as Ma Liang watched the children painting, he timidly approached the schoolmaster. "Excuse me, might I have an old brush so that I too can paint lovely pictures?"
So you think you would like to paint?" cried the schoolmaster. "You are just a poor peasant. Go back to your chores and do not come back into the schoolyard again."
Ma Liang was sad, but not discouraged. "Why shouldn't I learn to paint even though I am poor?" he said to himself. "I will learn even if I do not have a brush. I will draw the things I see." At the end of the day, when he finished his chores, Ma Liang looked carefully at everything around him and drew pictures wherever he could. With a stick, he drew trees and birds on the soft ground, and with his fingers, he drew turtles on the sand. When he went back to his little hut, Ma Liang drew pictures on the walls with a piece of burnt firewood. Long into the night he drew picture after picture. By morning he had covered the walls with drawings of everything he could think of. Ma Liang practiced his drawing every day. Soon the birds he drew looked just like the birds in the trees. The fish he drew looked just like the fish in the river. He became so skillful that the people of his village marveled at his pictures. They would gather around him when he drew his pictures in the dirt. But Ma Liang was still sad that he did not have his own brush. Every night before he went to bed, he closed his eyes and wished for one. One night, in a cloud of smoke and a flash of light, an old wizard appeared. The old man had watched Ma Liang every day as he drew his pictures and made the village people happy.
"Ma Liang," he said in a creaky voice, "you have worked very hard, and now you have earned a brush. But Use it wisely, for it has great powers. And then, with another cloud of smoke and a flash of light, the old man vanished. The next morning, Ma Liang awoke and thought about his strange dream. He looked down, and in his hands was a golden brush. He blinked to see if he was still dreaming, but the brush was really there. He jumped out of bed and went to the wall of his hut. There he drew a beautiful bird with his new brush. Then, right before his eyes, the bird became real. Ma Liang watched with wonder as the bird flapped its wings and flew off the wall. It flew out of Ma Liang's window to a tree outside, where it sang sweetly for the village people. That's amazing, thought Ma Liang. Then Ma Liang took his brush and scurried outside to a nearby stream, and on a rock he painted a toad. And just as he finished, the toad jumped off the rock and into the stream with a splash. The young boy stopped and looked again at his wonderful brush. It was magic. Everything he painted became real. Now, instead of gathering firewood and pulling weeds, Ma Liang went from hut to the poor people of his village and asked them, "What is it that you want most of all? I will paint it for you." Some said they needed clothing for their children, so Ma Liang painted clothing. A poor farmer asked for a buffalo to pull his plow. Ma Liang painted him a strong, healthy buffalo. And he painted food for the women to cook. All of the people in the village were very grateful and very happy. It was not long before the emperor heard about this young artist who was spreading good fortune throughout the village. But the emperor was a mean and greedy man. All he wanted was more and more gold for his kingdom. He wanted Ma Liang's brush for the wealth it could bring him. "Bring me the boy, Ma Liang," he commanded, "so that I might have the magic brush." So the emperor's soldiers marched to the small village to find Ma Liang. They told him of the emperor's wishes, but Ma Liang did not want to go. So the soldiers arrested Ma Liang and carried him back to the emperor's castle. Ma Liang was brought before the emperor. "So, you're the boy who paints pictures for the village people. If this is so, paint me a golden dragon," demanded the emperor. Ma Liang pretended he did not understand. He went to the wall, and instead of painting a golden dragon, he painted a green frog that leaped off the wall and landed right in the emperor's bowl of rice. Then the emperor ordered Ma Liang to paint him a bar of gold. Instead, Ma Liang drew a large yellow serpent. It attacked the emperor and had to be killed by the soldiers. The emperor was furious and grabbed the magic brush. He ordered Ma Liang thrown into the dungeon. Then the emperor called for the court painter. He handed him Ma Liang's brush and said, "Paint me a great tree with leaves of gold coins that will fall like rain when I shake the branches. Do it at once." The court painter did as he was told. When he finished, there was a beautiful picture of a tree on the wall with many gold coins on its branches. But when the emperor rushed to the tree to shake the branches, he ran right into the wall and bumped his head on it. The tree was not real. It was only a picture. Now the emperor realized that the brush had magical powers only when Ma Liang was the painter. He ordered his soldiers to bring the boy from the dungeon. When Ma Liang appeared, the greedy emperor tried to make friends with him and spoke to him kindly. "Here is your magic brush. I know I cannot use it to paint the things I want, but if you will stay in my palace and paint pictures for me, I will make you very rich." Ma Liang pretended to agree. So the emperor handed Ma Liang the brush. Now, paint me a mountain of pure gold, he said. Ma Liang painted the mountain, but he painted it behind a great and beautiful blue sea. Beautiful, beautiful, cried the emperor. Now paint me a ship so that I can sail to my mountain and bring back the gold. In a twinkling, Ma Liang painted a fine ship worthy of an emperor. The emperor and his soldiers quickly climbed aboard and set sail for the mountain. But since there was no wind, the ship moved very slowly. So the emperor called out, "Too slow! Too slow! Paint a wind to speed us along!" Again, Ma Liang did as he was told, and he painted a huge gust of wind to move the emperor's ship. The wind tore at the sails, and great waves pounded the ship. "Too much!" cried the emperor angrily. "You will sink us!" But Ma Liang could not hear the emperor's cries. The storm he had painted was too loud. The wind howled, and the waves crashed about the wooden ship. Then with a great crack, it split in two and sank into the stormy waters. Ma Liang walked slowly away from the palace. Never again was he forced to paint for evil purposes. Instead, he traveled across the lands of China, from one small village to another, and painted for the poor with his magic brush.
China has more than 3,000 years of recorded history, and its myths, legends, folktales, and proverbs date from ancient times. China is a very large country. There are different stories told in different parts of China, and the stories tell of the way of life of the people from different areas. There are hundreds of stories from China. Stories like The King of the Monkeys and the story of the first kite. You can find them in your school or public libraries. Read and enjoy the tales of China and stories from all over the world. Share a story with a friend, so our tales will never end.
The preceding program was funded in part by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.